Hey guys, welcome to the Rat Grind. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is June 29th and it's a green day. The first green day that we've had this entire week in the crypto market. So I'm very excited to talk to you guys about today's episode. We're going to look at a few things. But first of all, before we begin, if this is your first time on this channel, just a friendly reminder, please do your own research. This is not financial advice and I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Please do your own research and find projects and opportunities that you find value in and invest in those. Please use the topics, discussions that I present to you merely as a point of reference for you to be able to make more calculated and intelligent decisions for your own financial gain. All right. If this is your first time on this channel, please do subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, smash the likes, give me those thumbs up, guys. Please support this channel, as well as comment below, guys. Please give me your feedback. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know about the topics that we cover, what your opinion is. If you agree or disagree with the points that I try to make, I'd love to hear them because I'm learning as we make these videos, and not only from the research that I do, the practice that I do, but also from the community, from you guys, because I love to hear your perspective and I love the support that I've been getting. I love the feedback, the back and forth that I've had with some of you on the communities that I'm a part of. So I really appreciate the continued support. So today is a special episode. We're going to look at the crypto markets because it's come alive. It got a shot in the arm and it broke resistance and we're doing well. I mean, it closed on a green candle. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum closed on a green candle and it opened again on a green candle. So that's really good. I mean, for a Friday, it's Saturday to in some other places right now. Here in Southern California, it's still Friday. It's almost midnight, so it's almost going to be Saturday. So if you're watching this tomorrow on Saturday, good morning to you. Whenever you're watching this, I hope that the market stays green. And instead of looking at news today, like I've been telling you guys in the past couple of videos, that when I have time, instead of just continuing reading news, I look at research, I look at videos, I look at talks, panels, read blockchain news, books, and stuff like that. And I want to give you guys something, some information today that we're going to talk about. It was from the World Economic Forum earlier this year, and there was a panel in Davos called Crypto Asset Bubble, where they put a panel of 4 different experts coming from different perspectives, and we're going to talk about what they took out from that particular panel and what I learned from it. I'm going to present that to you, and in the end of this, I want to hear from you. I want to hear if my assessments of some of the things that they were talking about are accurate, and some of them, because we're looking at it in hindsight now, because this happened earlier this year, and about mid this year, I want to try to see, based on what they've discussed, how it has affected or how those became true or maybe did not come true. All right. So first thing is first, we're going to look at the markets. We're going to look at the charts and we're going to see where the crypto market took us today. All right. Just wait a second. Perfect, guys. So if you'll see behind me, everything is in green, and this is significant gains because of the fact that we've been looking at it yesterday. We took a major dump. It was a very bearish day yesterday when we were talking about this on last night's video. And today, as you can see, really big gains. Bitcoin 8.9%, almost 10%. Ethereum 8.24%. Bitcoin Cash 14%, guys. This is significant gains. IOTA 11%. Cardano, I love this, 14%. Ripple 5%, Litecoin 10%, Neo 12%. This is amazing, guys. So we're gonna look at CoinMarketCap right now, see where we are at. So as far as the market cap today, last night we were looking at this. We were in the low $200 billion, right? Today, as of right now, we are at $257 billion. I know this is far from the almost $1 trillion market cap that we were in the parabolic runs back in December, and just a couple of months ago we were at about almost $500 million. So looking at it from that perspective, yes, 257,000 is quite low. I mean, 257 billion is quite low, but with the trashing that we've been getting from the crypto markets overall, I'll take this day because, it's a much deserved day for all of us that are in the trenches doing this on a day-to-day basis, basically grinding at the crypto markets, keeping up with the news and all of that stuff. 24-hour volume picked up today, which was the catalyst for some of this increase. So there was a lot of money that came in earlier. We were at almost $10 billion, so about $4 billion came into the space, and we're at $14 billion in market 24-hour volume, I mean. So if we look at everything, I think some of the biggest coins, so 10x, Power Ledger, Monaco coin, wow, 53% on 10x. Well, I have their app on my phone. I don't have quite the card yet because it's not available yet, but that's a really, really good project. Monaco Wax, 0x, wow, 22%. That's amazing gains, guys. Status, Ethos released their wallet today. That's wonderful news for all of you guys that are invested in Ethos, although it's not available everywhere else. But they released it on Android first. I believe I forgot which particular country they did it. I haven't got the notification. I'm still waiting for it here. But everything, guys, look at this. Everything on the top 100 is on the green. I don't remember when I've seen this. I know, I've been reading a lot of news, being a part of a lot of communities. A lot of people are depressed, because they feel like, oh my God, here we go again. Here's another increase, and then we're going to get dumped on tomorrow or Monday, Wednesday, weekend, whatever the case may be. I understand that can potentially happen. That's why we're going to look at the charts of the probabilities of those things happening. But you have to give it to yourself. If you're still here in this particular market throughout this year, you have to give yourself a pat in the back because a lot of people have left this space. A lot of people bought in on the FOMO back in December, lost a ton of money, and have left us. And there are those that have stuck with us through thick and thin that are still here. And if you are one of those guys, congratulations to you, because at least any good day is always a good day. However you cut it, it's still a positive day for all of us. I mean, I may sound maybe too happy because I am. I mean, I know this is not, I'm still down on some of my investments, but hey, whenever I see these green candles, I'm happy, guys. You should be as well. So congratulations to all of you that were able to make some gains. I was part of the community where we were just having a discussion on Telegram during my lunch break, and all of a sudden, guys, somebody says like, what's going on? And then we checked our alerts, and our phone started going off, and we started getting alerts like, oh my God, it was just pumping like crazy today. So on Bitcoin, and then we looked at CoinMarketCap, and it was red, and boom, in one instance it was all green. I looked at Coin360, it was all green. So that was great to see. So if we look at Bitcoin right now, as you can see, we ended on a very good bearish engulfing candle here, right? So that is a great bullish reversal. I know that it can still dump on us, right? But this is unlike these previous ones where we hit a little bit of an uptick, a big engulfing candle, was rejected a little bit, and then went back into a red candle, and proceeded to consolidate, right? Here, we are above this resistance, so we want to be able to see how this reacts on this first resistance line about the 6,800. We talked about in yesterday's video that we want this to close on a green candle, specifically above 6,000, because as of yesterday, we were under 6,000, guys. So in one day, from being under, sub 6,000 to now being at a 6,400, that is really, really great news. The last time that these happened was, for example, here, right? when it had this run up on this particular period, we had a green candle, an engulfing, a large engulfing candle where we broke through a lot of the resistance, a lot of the support, a lot of the EMAs, and just continued an upward trend. I know from here, when we hit that resistance point, we then broke out and, you know, continue break down. So that was one time we had that this particular candle style. The other time that we had that was here, and previously on this candle and these candles, right? But the big difference of today is there is, as you can see in these time frames, there's a lot of volume that's happening. If you look at these columns here, there's a lot of selling momentum, there's a lot of buying momentum, buying volume that is happening in that particular time that we don't have today. So today, as you can see, the last 3 days, it's been, you know, red, and then a big green column yesterday, and today we have another good green candle, which, you know, pretty much the next day had just started for a lot of us, and, you know, for me hasn't even started yet. So that's a really good sign, and it's being rejected by the 21-day exponential moving average right now. I wanted to bounce above that because it's already bounced above the 8-day EMA, so that's a really good sign. I just wanted to break through this a little bit more, and maybe end above this 21-day exponential moving average. And again, like I always tell you guys, I'd rather have small upticks in price on a day-to-day basis than have parabolic runs, because those parabolic runs do get corrected, right? Every time we have big run-ups, like this candle right here, we have a big candle, that's going to get worked out sometime in the future, and it did right here. It consolidated here and broke that bull excuse me, that bullish momentum and proceeded down. Also here we had this, you know, these big long candles, and again broke down and consolidated and proceeded down. I think what I want to be able to see is, I wanted to be able to break through the 6,800 resistance line, and then I wanted to break through this particular resistance line or trend line here. So that's where I'm looking at it. If we look at the MACD completely went bullish crossover there, so that's really amazing to see. If we look at here, the selling momentum, like we've talked about in the last couple of days, we expected this, guys. We were expecting this. You know, like I told you, I wasn't in last night's video, I couldn't believe that it broke down sub 6,000 last night when we were doing the video, because all the indicators were telling us that, hey, you know, there's not a lot of selling momentum that is happening, right? So it's unfortunate that it did, but it's good that we, you know, like as you can see right here, that's a really great column on above the MACD, above the histogram line. If we look at the RSI, guys, we have finally broke above the oversold level. So that is wonderful to see. That I love seeing this. If you look at the stochastics, oops, sorry about that. If you look at the stochastics, again, another bullish crossover there on the stochastics line. We're within the range of the purple line. And the greatest thing about this, guys, this is what I'm so excited about. When we look at the 1 week candle, which we rarely do, but I look at all of this to try to see where the momentum is headed, right? If you look at the 1 day candle, 1 day chart, we are currently, consider this. Overall, I'm sure you felt very bearish this whole week, right? But if you look at the candle, we are closing currently on a green candle. So for a week time, we haven't had a green candle since back in May, the end of May. So we went like a whole month, you know, in June without having a green candle on the week chart. So this is really great news for all of us. We hope that we are able to finally break through this psychological trend line, resistance trend line, and continue upwards. And that's what we all want to see, and that's all that we are looking for. So let's look at Ethereum, guys. Ethereum is the same thing. Personally, I see a column here. This is I see this as a not column, but a flag, a bull flag here, as a continuation pattern of this. I know this is quite long, but you know, that's what I'm seeing. But again, it was rejected on the 8-day exponential moving average, but nonetheless, we were able to pick up some good buying volume here. So that's, I'll take that any day. If we look at the Ethereum, it's pointing up. I know that I told you guys that for Ethereum, I haven't really seen that it was going bullish, and today finally it's pointing up, right? We saw this pointing down and ever expanding, diverging bearishly, but seeing this point up and almost ticking that line is very hopeful. But we're not out of the woods, because it can get rejected by this line and then continue its downward momentum. But the good thing that I see here is, if we look at this, there's less selling momentum that's on the histogram. So that is really, really good news. If we look at the RSI, we also have been able to break out of the oversold levels, right? So we're currently sitting at about 33. 33. We were down here as of last night, right? So just today alone, just this evening, we are able to break through that. So that's really, really good news. Stochastics is the same thing. And like I told, I'm not sure if I've always mentioned it on this particular channel or these videos, is the, stochastics and the RSI are leading indicators. So basically trying to project where the momentum of the market is taking us. MACD is a lagging indicator. So it gives us the analysis of the price action that happened already. So we always want to look at these confluences to see where the market could be potentially headed. And we look at the candle action, right? We look at the pattern that is forming. A very big bullish engulfing candle is one of those signs that are telling us that it's picked a bullish momentum over a bearish one. But we need to have more of those candles to be able to confirm the confluences, and of course those exponential moving average lines, making sure we break above them and we bounce off of them, and looking at those trend lines. I know there's quite a lot to look at here, but again, we're looking at the best probabilities of where the market could potentially be headed. So if you are in this space, congratulations again. We're gonna keep watching this throughout the weekend to see if we are able to hold this. If we're able to hold for a third day, then that is a really, really good sign for all of us. I know we can still drop. Don't take this as a means for you to say like, okay, we're going to the moon, or this is Lambo time. That is not the responsible way to think about this. The responsible way of thinking about this is, as long as we continually form a higher high and lower high day to day for the next year, that is always good, because eventually we are going to get to the moon and Lambo prices that you all are wishing for, just in the responsible trend, just in the responsible timeline. So that's what we are all hoping to see. All right, so right now let's go back into my PowerPoint so that we can go through the presentation that I want to be able to discuss with you guys today. So let's close this out here. Okay, we're back to our PowerPoint presentation. All right, so today we're going to talk about the crypto asset bubble, right? This was a topic that was talked about in the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos earlier this year. And here we have Neil Rimmer, Jennifer Shu Scott, Robert Schiller, and Cecilia Kingsley, that were talking in the particular panel. Robert Schiller is a professor at Yale. Cecilia Kingsley is a deputy governor of the Swedish Central Bank. Swedish Central Bank is very, very important because the Swedish Central Bank was the first central bank. They basically invented the idea of central banks, right? And crypto asset enthusiast Jennifer Shu Scott, she urges like full steam ahead in cryptocurrency. And of course, technology investor Neil Rimmer takes more of a measured, pro Bitcoin stance, and that's where he is able to bring some of those insights, value into this particular conversation. So the first thing that they were talking about was this. They were talking about that from the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis came the revolution of Bitcoin, because Satoshi Nakamoto, him or her or them, that group of people or individuals, really envisioned a secure, decentralized system for peer-to-peer payments, right? And Bitcoin was the result of that. I know we sort of, we always talk about the altcoins. We always are talking about, a lot of these ICO projects and all that stuff, but Bitcoin is the one that started it all. But Bitcoin was definitely not the first. It was just the first successful experiment that actually, took mainstream, right? It's not fully adapted by everybody, but it was able to take the world by storm and actually inject innovation within our space. Today, if we fast forward from 2008 to 2018, 10 years later, there's over 1,500 crypto assets out there, from smart contract assets to different platforms like Ethereum, EOS, Neo, Ontology, and stuff like this. We have privacy coins, we have ICO coins, we have utility coins. We have so many coins out there, and they were all born from the innovation that Satoshi Nakamoto was able to gift us. So they talked about that because a lot of times, when they were going back and forth in this particular talk, some of them were not prepared. Like, I'll talk about it more later. Robert Schiller was not as prepared as the rest of them because he didn't really understand blockchain and cryptocurrencies as the rest of the panels, but he's coming from it from a more, because he's a professor, he's an economist, he has all of that backing, so that's why he was put as part of this particular panel. The next thing that they were talking about is this was not the first revolution, and Robert Schiller was talking about this. He talked about that in 1879, astronomer Simon Newcomb, he proposed a compensated dollar. I mean, he was not the only one. There was a paper that I'm going to attach. I hope you guys are seeing this because I have two screens, right? So Irving Fisher and his compensated dollar plan. I read this particular paper. I'm going to link it on the description below so that you can be able to read up on this. Basically, right up until the Civil War, basically what happened was there was a lot of things that were happening that was causing the dollar to get devalued, right? So of course, when they look at that, the value of the dollar was going down, just because of the fact that we kept printing more and more and more and more of it. So they looked at, okay, well, then maybe we need to be able to adjust this by not just printing more money, but actually back it back with gold. So compensate the dollar with an actual asset. So that was one of the things that they did in 1879. And in 1967, this is quite recent, guys. Chile launched its own digital payment system. It's called Unidad de Fomento, as a stable alternative to paper money. Basically, we understand inflation, right? If you don't, I pulled up a description here of inflation, right? Well, I'm going to link this particular article as well. This was an article, but actually by Robert Schiller. This was in March 1st, 2014, when he did talk about Unidad de Fomento, and it's an inflation index unit account called Unidad de Fomento. But before we go there, let's look at what inflation is, right? So inflation is the rate of increase in prices for goods and services. Each look at the prices of hundreds of things we commonly spend money into, like bread, commodities, rice, rent, and stuff like that. And the inflation rates are expressed as percentages, right? So here in the United States, our projected inflation rate for 2018 is 2.54%, and next year, 2019, it will be 2.44%. So that means that the price of goods, we expect that the cost of living will increase by 2.44%, and that is inflation. And the reason that that's important in this particular excuse me, Unidad de Fomento is basically they separated the unit of exchange from the medium unit of account to the medium of exchange, right? So what they do is they publish an index, Unidad de Fomento, like for example, it's 2.7%. So if that's it, that's a rent that they'll charge. So let's say, for instance, rent is $1, right? In Chile it's a peso, but let's say it's $1. So they will say that your dollar is equal to 1%. if there's an inflation rate of 2.5%, so your rent will be published as $1 UF, unidad de fomento, but then you will multiply your money to that actual percentage, and that's what you will be paying. So it doesn't matter what the price of the good is, you are always paying based on the inflation rate that the index commands, right? That which they set on a monthly basis. They publish this for everybody to see so that they know that next month, well, the price of good is going to go up depending on this, and the price of every good is just fixed under one index, which is the unidad de fomento. So that's very fascinating stuff. I'm going to link to that particular article in the description below. I know it's a little bit old, but these are all good because these are part of the financial history, financial policy history that helps shape where we are today as far as our economics are concerned, as far as our banking system, our financial system is based on, right? And they also talked about like Bitcoin is an asset, not really a currency. I think we're seeing that more and more now. I've talked about it on this particular channel in previous videos that, in regards to it being a currency, Bitcoin currently is not as practical, right? There was a conversation that I was part of today on a Telegram group where somebody posted that, Bitcoin is not really a good means of exchange and all that stuff. But I do agree because of the fact that currently it's so unstable, right? And it takes about 10 minutes for a new block to be created. I know there's Lightning Network, there's all of these off-chain and layered solutions to be able to scale Bitcoin, but at the current moment, it's not yet there. And that's why they said that Bitcoin is acting more like an asset as opposed to a currency, because it makes a poor medium of exchange. So they can't really see it as replacing conventional money. This was from the central banker, Cecilia Kingsley. Right? It's Kingsley. I misspelled her name. It's not Kingsley, but it's Kingsley. In Japan, this was fascinating. I didn't know this. In Japan, Bitcoin is considered and classified as a currency. But she pointed out that even though it is, you cannot pay your taxes with Bitcoin. So if it really is a medium of exchange and considered a currency in a particular country, then why can't it be used to pay taxes? Because of the fact that there's volatility in place, they can use it as a means to exchange, to transact, but then they have to sell right away into their fiat currency so that they can be able to settle that money and be able to pull out the actual fiat that they will be able to use and run their particular government. So that was very fascinating. They were also talking about, because it's a good potential asset class instead of a currency, then it could be a good replacement for gold, because of the fact that it can displace gold as a reserve currency because of its because of the way that it is designed and it's programmed, right? Because it's governed not by human beings, but it's governed by code, by programming that will not allow it to be manipulated like any other ones. It can also potentially disrupt venture capitalism, which we are already seeing today, with the initial public offerings and using ICOs instead. And it can shake up, notaries, title insurance, and I go on to say that it could shake up the whole law, lawyers, attorneys and stuff like that, because of the fact that a lot of these things can be programmed already, and we have logic that we can put in place that can execute pretty much the same thing, like the wills, settlements, counterparty agreements, escrow and stuff like that. It can already be able to do that using the blockchain and the smart contracts that can be built into the blockchain. And they also talk about that the money that we currently earn anywhere you are, whatever, you could be earning in peso from the Philippines, you could be earning peso from Mexico, Chile, or you could be earning dollars or whatnot, right? British pounds, wherever you're from. Your money is inflationary, right? Because they can keep producing more and more of it as needed. And that's, I've talked about that in the past. There have been hyperinflations that have happened in many, many different countries. that have caused the value of their money to decrease substantially. And here in the US, we keep printing more and more money. And there's a very interesting chart after this particular video. I mean, after this particular slide that I want to be able to show you guys. So they talked about how Bitcoin is limited to 21 million only ever. That's what gives it the deflationary value. And what gold as reserve is doing today, Bitcoin can do that and do that better. That was according to Jennifer Shue Scott because of its deflationary value, right? So before we talk about that, but it could still fail. It's a great alternative, but it could still fail and as an asset. You know, because the distributed ledger could still be vulnerable to hacking. I know that doing a 51% attack on a large scale network like Bitcoin is highly improbable because of the cost associated, the hardware, the power, all that stuff that is associated with it. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It can happen. But it can be a great alternative to currency if done correctly when the scaling of its solutions finally is fixed, because it cannot be regulated, or sorry, cannot be manipulated, and it's idiot proof. I say idiot proof because you know, some governments are not as capable as others. I'm sure you would agree with that. But let's look at this, guys. I want to just kind of open your mind a little bit to what the current situation of the world is, right? We looked at the current inflation, future projected inflation of the United States all the way to 2013. As you can see, it stays about within 2.4, 2.2, 2%, right? But look at this, guys. I'm going to refresh this just so that you can get this into your heads. I'm looking at the nationaldebtclocks.org and the interest accrued. Look at this, guys. Since we arrived, the interest on the debt that the world owes to whom? Think about that. It's 72 to 73 trillion dollars, and the assets accrued as we're looking at this clock is increasing at an astounding rate. Like, look at that. 2 million, 2.2, 2.3 million that are going up every single second, right? So think about that for a second. If this is the world debt that we have, who do we owe that to? Like, to another planet? Like the Earth owes $72 trillion to Mars? Like, that doesn't make sense, does it? But that's the way the world fiat economy works. It's because of debt. We borrow every single fiat currency in existence. If you don't understand that, do some research about this. At every single fiat currency that is ever produced is always borrowed from existence, because it's not backed by anything. If it was backed by gold, then you can at least withdraw your fiat currency, or it would be fiat currency, it would actually be money representative at that time. It would be notes, right? But fiat is just, we talk about the speculativeness of cryptocurrencies. Our money, our considered money, paper money, fiat currency, is as speculative as well. I know it's backed by the economy, by the government, but they can keep printing and printing and printing as much as possible. There's a video when I first started this channel that I played that it talked about the secrets of money by I forgot his name, but it's I'm gonna link it on the description below, where it talked about the biggest scam in human history, where fractional reserve lending and all this stuff just creates money out of thin air, basically borrows it and gives it away, sells it, and then it charges interest on money that doesn't even exist and all that stuff. But look at that. In the last last 2 minutes, right, we have accrued close to $11 million in debt just to interest alone in like 2 minutes. So think about that, guys. Once you celebrate a birthday and you celebrate the next year, imagine how many minutes have passed, how many millions and millions and billions of dollars in debt has been accrued in just 1 year of your lifetime that you've added, right? So that is astounding, guys. So that's why it's very important that we recognize that crypto assets and Bitcoin, if used and implemented correctly, and the scaling solution is solved while keeping the security of it, can dramatically revolutionize the world that we live in. So I just want to kind of put that into context for all of you guys. They also talked about this. So if then it's an asset, right? Should it be regulated? I've been thinking about this a lot since since this whole downturn that we've been experiencing, right? I think I reported a couple of weeks ago there was a lot of SEC clarity on what they consider securities and non-securities, right? But even with that clarification, there is still some more that needs to happen, because for example, taxes here in the United States, they are considering this as property, when on the other hand they're being considered a security, and the CFTC is considering it as commodity. So how logical is that for you to be able to trade your crypto assets from one coin to another, or from fiat to Bitcoin, and from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and back and forth? Every single transaction is taxed at a particular percentage rate. That needs to be resolved. That is unfair. That is simply unfair. That needs to be handled, and I think sooner rather than later, so that we can be able to have more clarity in this particular space. So it will allow us to infuse more of our fiat capital into the space for it to be able to grow. So if asset, they say Bitcoin, if it's an asset, then Bitcoin faces few rules and investor protections, because that is precisely what the SEC was talking about, that this is like the wild west. So they need to be able to kind of clamp down on it and be able to protect retail investors from losing money to those scammy coins that are out there, scammy projects that are preying on our hard-earned money. And because of the lack of central institutions, no one or nothing can be able to prop it up if it collapses, right? But that's the thing. If we use this and implement this correctly, then there's no reason for it to collapse, because it will be an unmanipulated asset that is not centrally controlled by anybody. So unless the internet goes out, I can't really see that that's going to happen. But they were talking about that nonetheless. So regulations, they say and argue, and I do agree, that would help mainstream investors and attract new investors into the space. So that was another thing. And they were also talking about there are a lot of countries that are considering fiat, right? China banned ICOs, but they are slowly opening up that idea of potentially maybe reversing those bans. There's a lot of small economies, like third world economies, that are looking at cryptocurrencies or blockchain powered currencies because of the fact that it cannot be manipulated, right? Cambodia is one of them, and even Sweden itself, the first central bank, is considering krona is their fiat. They're considering e-krona. So that is really good, because they do understand the value that a digital currency provides and the technology of programmable money provides, that is not prone to manipulation and overprinting by a lot of these central banks. So they do understand that particular facet of it. They all agree that currently Bitcoin is a speculative bubble. I think not only Bitcoin was the main topic that they were talking about, but a lot of this is a speculative asset, right? We have to understand that buying into cryptocurrencies currently is a zero-sum game. Whenever you make money from cryptocurrency, someone else loses, right? Because a lot of these things, the value is just created out of thin air. The value of a cryptocurrency is based on the amount of money that someone else is willing to pay for that particular coin, particular asset, right? So it's very important that we open up and diversify our portfolio so that we can be able to be protected from a lot of these, bubbles potentially popping, because although crypto assets in general could be in its own bubble, each of the cryptocurrencies that we do invest in have their own individuals by themselves as well, because a lot of these projects have nothing. They're projects that are being worked on. They're basically Kickstarter, glorified Kickstarter, that have no assets whatsoever, because when you bought a cryptocurrency, you did not necessarily buy a security into that particular company. You are promised secondary market value, but not necessarily an actual share or a benefit. A representation within that particular company or project itself. This is basically like, why we had in America the Boston Tea Party and, that whole no taxation without representation thing. Because if you are being sold a coin where you don't have any control over, then you're basically being taxed without being able to represent yourself, right? So that's something that you need to be able to understand. And at this point, they were talking about that it was difficult to short. It's actually a lot easier to short now, because Bitfinex, we have BitMEX, we have the CMEs, these futures that are able to weigh in on the futures of this and short it. So that debate was not really founded anymore, because of the fact that the evolution has happened already since then, that they had this discussion earlier this year. And a mature futures market, they say, will help stabilize it, right? So that's true, because when you have all these FOMOs happening and you have a lot of these FUDs happening, a lot of those play into the manipulation of the space, but we will be able to prevent those massive parabolic runs because other people are shorting it. So I know a lot of you want those parabolic runs because you want to be able to make money, but parabolic money where you like 1,000x, 10,000x your money. But at the same time, we need something that is more stable, so that a lot of people are not afraid that they're going to lose all their money tomorrow. If you lose a few percentage of your money, that's not a problem. But when you're losing 80%, 90% of something that you bought into, that is a big problem, because most likely you're going to leave the space and have a bad taste in your mouth and you're never going to come back. So that is something that we don't want to happen in this particular space. So they also looked at the asset bubble curve, right? They look at where we are. I mean, potentially right now we're in this despair area after these parabolic runs. We're sort of in the despair area, because as you can see if you're part of the communities, read it into them. Read between the lines. A lot of them, when they see the pumps that we saw today, a lot of them saying, you know what? That's going to dump tomorrow. That's going to drop again tomorrow. And that pessimistic thinking is completely opposite to what we were all saying earlier this year. Like, oh, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's just a minor correction. It's going to go pump back up again. And that didn't happen. And so now people are sort of in the despair phase where they've just lost, a lot of money in the space, and they have a lack of optimism for the entire space overall. So a lot of them were considering that, talking about holding on to cryptocurrencies instead of shorting it. And again, this is a modern gold rush. It's a speculative bubble, but that does not mean that it will collapse entirely. If we truly understand the innovation that this particular new asset class brings to the world, if we are able to categorize the securities within the space, because there are securities. When a company is selling you an ICO because they need your money to develop their product, that is a security in and of itself, although it's actually unfair for us that are investing in ICOs, because we don't have any control over that. There's no voting rights, we don't get dividends or whatnot, right? But those classifications will exist eventually, that some ICOs will be considered. Bitcoin was not considered an ICO, a security, because they never raised money. They just started mining. And the only incentive, the only way for you to earn cryptocurrency is through mining. No one ever gave, printed 10 million of Bitcoin and then gave it away and sold it for a price. That did not happen, right? And that's why Bitcoin is, among all of these, the most safe, because Satoshi Nakamoto developed this technology without any help from any of us, without funding from any of us. He just developed this technology all on his own and gave it to us for free, essentially. So we really need to understand the space, continue to study it, continue putting our time, our efforts, and really understanding how this evolution is going to affect us in the entire world moving forward. We are in a very immature phase of this particular asset class in this particular market. The history of this is about 10 years old. We're not even in our teens yet. So there is a lot more for us to be able to do, to be able to push this technology, push this market even further. And with your help and with the videos like this and with more education on the space, it will allow consumers and regular investors to be able to see the value in this, not only from the FOMO, from the parabolic gains in money, but also from the utility side of cryptocurrencies and how this can potentially change the world. Right. So here's the link. It was over the again. I'm going to provide the link on the description below the video so you guys can be able to watch this particular panel. I know this happened earlier this year, but it's good information nonetheless. Like I told you guys, I want to keep making some of these videos where we talk about things outside of what's happening in the space, outside of the news and all that stuff, so we can kind of get more perspective on where the currency, where the industry is going to be and where it is at the current moment. All right, so that is pretty much everything, guys, that I want to be able to cover with you guys. Tomorrow we're going to look at the price, we're going to see where it went, where it's going to go, and potentially how we're going to be able to play these next few days to be able to make more gains, protect the assets, protect the money that we work so hard for on a day-to-day basis. All right. Again, thank you so much for your time today. If this is your first time on the video, please don't forget to subscribe. Please comment below, and I will see you on the next video. Until I see you guys on the next video, I wish you and your family a success-filled day. Good night, guys. Love you. Bye.